Alright, what's going on, boys and girls? So this particular video, we're going to be looking at where the Steam Deck will fail. And do know, this is stated as like an essential fact. So I don't know exactly where he's going to go with this. For those that want the short version, is me and homeboy here that I'm reacting to, I've reacted to, I've had conversations with. We don't get along. Let's just put it that way. For me, he's Lunduke, just in a different way. And you know, have your opinions, but at least let's see what he's got to say, and maybe I won't bash my head off a fucking wall this time like I normally do when I react to him.
Amazing piece of hardware coming out towards the end of this year, but it's gonna fail in certain spots that I guess nobody even sees, or maybe they just don't want to say anything. It almost kind of reminds me when I was like, hey, Bitcoin's gonna crash, and everybody kind of came out with their pitchforks, and then it crashed. And everyone just kind of was like, oh, I guess he was right. Let's just pretend that never happened. But with the Steam Deck, I see a whole bunch of potential. And
So as far as the Bitcoin thing, bud, just because you were right, because yeah, you can totally predict China banning all Bitcoin and exchanges and mining. So therefore sending everybody across the planet to different areas other than China. Yeah, you totally predicted that, bud. Sorry, sarcasm is high.
I want to go over the good things first, because there are some just amazing things this device is going to do that has never been done before, but it's still going to fail in the biggest area, and that is most people will be wiping out Linux on it and installing Windows. And I'll tell you why. So first off, it is an amazing price point for this piece of hardware, starting at $400. I actually went ahead, got mine reserved right here. I just got the mid-grade model because that's the quickest I could have gotten it for about $530 for this type of hardware, which is great. Looking at the hardware itself and the feature set, I love the layout. I love the touchpads. I like the grip buttons on the back. Everyone's talked about that, how good this is. And I even watched some IGN Insider stuff where they said, well, this might be clunky because it's a weird layout. But after they actually had their hands on, they said actually it was very comfortable. So
for anybody who is half of a gamer, 1 second. So anybody who is half of a gamer would look at the Steam Deck and go, huh, that layout looks really, really familiar. Joysticks on the top, etc. A little wider. It looks like a Wii U gamepad. So it's not that different. So people who are saying it's going to be, oh my God, terrible. Only 13 million of these things are made. How many have actually used them? Because this is actually pretty damn comfy. Even on games that like Ninja Gaiden 3 Razor's Edge, I use the gamepad. I don't use the Pro Controller because I find this more comfortable to use. And that's an action game where you would want more of a generic controller. So it's not that everybody's talking about it or that's going to look bad. It's just that Gaming Press is a bunch of morons and has never used stuff outside of whatever college graduate they are this year mentality. So I tend to take issue with Gaming Press because most of them tend to be fucking morons.
I'm very looking forward to the layout, the screen, and the hardware, which we'll get into the hardware here. But you can see it's fluid. It is really, really nice. Going through, so the micro SD portion, I don't recommend ever playing games on the micro SD. I think the maximum throughput you can get on these is about 90 megabytes per second. So I'm curious to see how they're gonna promote that, because gaming on a SD card is just not a good experience. Maybe retro gaming's okay, or maybe older games would be all right, but any kind of modern AAA title on an SD card will be terrible. That's one criticism I have, but that's really nothing.
Have you played on a Switch lately, bruh? 32 gigs don't last very long. Most of your games are on the SD card. And guess what? They play fine.
compared to what I think's really going to sink it. Coming back through down here, I'll probably be using the dock. And I don't even know if they show it here, but the dock looks amazing. Being able to use this as a computer and a gaming system on the go, I think is going to be a huge boon for so many. And yeah, here it is. Spread the fields, the internals, everything just looks good on this respect. From the hardware perspective, I said it was great hardware. Why I said that was Zen 2 is kind of old, right? 2019. However, the APU they're putting with this is something really, really interesting. You can see most of the 3000 series came out in 2019, and the APU series, the 4000 series, came out this past year, kind of. It was in such limited stock, I don't think very many people got to mess with these APUs. But it doesn't matter, because these APUs aren't even really what Steam's getting. They're getting RDNA 2 on the graphics, which, if you look, RDNA 2 is the 6000 series. Coupled that with the Zen 2 architecture, and you have a magical thing, because I think, and don't quote me on this, but what I think they're doing with this hardware setup is they will be playing to smart access memory, which is something new with the RDNA 2 architecture. And I think they're going to backdate this to where you get a lot more performance. Now, don't quote me on that, but it looks that way from them putting these architecture changes in and shifting it, and having Steam with all of this can make for an amazing gaming experience. But at the very beginning there, I did say most people will be playing on Windows. And why is that? Talking to Steam and a lot of the press releases going through, they did say Easy Anti-Cheat will be available on Linux, and that will open up a whole bunch of game libraries. And from the game libraries, don't pay attention to the top 10 here, because all these are Easy Anti-Cheat games. Destiny 2 actually technically works on Linux. It's just basically locked down in the Stadia environment. But all these others are just easy anti-cheat games. There's no actual reason for them not to play on Linux other than that one fact. So that actually will solve most of it. Also, these numbers have ticked up, and they said they want them at about 100% by the time the Steam Deck launches, which is really interesting because some of these things in the red will not get solved by that. Spoiler, they're not going to hit 100%. And I know this because there's certain things that are out of their control that nobody's talking about. And what I'm saying here is Uplay. Uplay is a terrible platform, but they have all the Assassin's Creed series on it. People love Assassin's Creed. And if we put Assassin's Creed in ProtonDB, we can scroll down and look, it's all gold and platinum and silver, which is great, right? Well, Uplay itself sometimes crashes, gets a little buggy. I think this is going to be a little bit of a stopping point. And EA Origin is another one that is really kind of waffling back and forth a lot because you had a lot of titles released on that, such as like Star Wars Old Republic and some other ones that are still, I think, using the Origin launcher a little bit. I know Star Wars Old Republic has its own dedicated launcher, but they really need to look at that. And really, those two are possibilities. They just have tons of problems right now, even with the silver, gold, platinum.
Okay, bro. Gonna ask, when was the last time you actually tried launching Uplay through Steam? Because I just did it with Splinter Cell Blacklist, and guess what? Ubisoft Connect worked, so I could play the game. So if you're gonna talk about it, at least show it. Did I have to restart it? Yeah, it's no different than when I have to restart the crap on Windows. See, you're under the fallacy that it's just going to work on Windows. The experiences are vastly different as far as what you're saying. Because what you're saying is, it's developed for Windows. It's just going to work on Windows. And that's not the case. Because how many times has Origin had issues? How many times has Uplay had issues? Hell, even Steam. These are not perfect services. Far from it. And do I expect 100% game compatibility on Steam, on the Steam Deck? Fuck no. But here's the problem. See, people like you are viewing this as a PC that does gaming. I'm viewing this as a game console that happens to be a PC. It's the mind frame in which you come across to this device is whether or not you will succeed or fail based on the perception that Valve gives it. That is the key difference. This is the problem with Steam. This is the original problem with Steam machines. They sold them as a PC. That was it. They happened to run, a console-fied version of a gaming PC. They pointed it out as a PC first and a console second. What you guys don't seem to understand is you guys are approaching this as PC gamers. This is not meant for PC gamers in the traditional sense. And that's where you guys fail to constantly understand this. You guys talk about wanting to bring more people to Linux, yada, yada, yada. Oh, it's going to install Windows. People just want shit to work. So if you take a console mentality to it, it's a different mind frame than what you do when you sit here and talk about it as if it's a PC. Because it's not meant to be. It's a secondary, it's a tertiary thing to its main selling point, which is your Steam library to play on the go.
Anyone that actually games on Linux knows a lot of these titles are not perfect, and it's not a great experience when you have multiple launchers going through Wine. It can be a little dicey. As far as EA goes, you can see EA Play is coming to here. And this is kind of a good thing where Origin has been a thorn in many Linux gamers' sides for a while. But back this past year, they actually said, hey, EA is actually coming to Steam or coming back to Steam, which is good. I'm glad to see this. I'm pretty sure Steam had to cut EA some kind of deal to try and get their library back into Steam. But seeing this come back is great. But there's one big publisher that has its own independent launcher that will not come to Steam. And if anything, a lot of the existing game library might get pulled from Steam if this happens. And of course, I'm talking about the infamous Bethesda launcher. Most of these games play like complete poo on Linux. And it's mainly because of Bethesda launcher. Nay, it is because of Bethesda.
No, you're an idiot. Because any generic gamer will tell you any of those games, doesn't matter the platform, they run like shit regardless. Why do you think it's always the modders who fix the fucking games? Like, I will say, playing them on Linux introduces other problems. That is not wrong. But to say it's Linux they specifically run like crap on? No. Have you played it on Windows at all? Even fucking Skyrim, and it's myriad of years that it's been re-released and redone and revamped and refixed by modders, is still a broken, buggy mess. Fallout 76. I don't even want to get into that. Just train wreck fucking clusterfuck. Fallout 4, Fallout 3, New Vegas. And I love New Vegas. But they're buggy, broken messes. Vanilla, as they are. In their non-modded form. And anybody who's spent more than an hour in that would actually understand that and know that. So why do people take gaming advice from you? I mean, hell, even Prey, an arcade game, which is published by Bethesda, was broken at launch because there was a game-breaking issue that it took the PC community to fix in order for the rest of the community of gamers to enjoy.
The launcher. And I'd love to see almost every one of these games hit Steam, and for most part it has, but my main worry is Microsoft. Microsoft's not going to like people moving from Windows to Linux if it happens in mass. And let's say the Steam Deck could be a catalyst for that. I think if this starts to happen, what you'll see is a lot of Bethesda's library. They don't care anything about Bethesda or its games. Let's be real. It's Microsoft. They care about dominance.
they care about dominance just like any other fucking company that is in a market wants to be the market leader, the market dominance. That's, if you're in business, that's what you're aiming for. That, you want to, human greed, it's kind of a thing. You want to be the best, you want to take in the most money, you want to have the best employees, et cetera, whatever. Market dominance is just Microsoft's MO. However, what I have learned is that there are certain times where right now you're speaking out of your ass. If they weren't going to do this, they wouldn't have enabled an option after Linux users complained they couldn't play fucking Halo of all franchises on Linux because of EAC. And they made it so you couldn't disable EAC, still play online, just not in the ranked matches. Microsoft, let that sink in. Recore, totally playable under Linux. That was one of their big exclusives. Fucking Quantum Break, Steam, totally playable on Linux. The evidence states otherwise. Don't make blanket statements if the evidence states otherwise. You're right, they don't care. They don't care the fucking platform. They care about your money. And at the end of the day, if you're on Linux, Windows, Mac OS, Android, iOS, whatever, wherever they avenues they can get money, they're not gonna care. Why do you think they have fucking essentially Windows 365 now?
At the end of the day, and they'll pull all those Bethesda games back to the Microsoft store, even though gamers will literally revolt. They'll still do it. And I worry about that. That's one thing I really worry about. There's all these different kinds of launchers, and then the wild card in all this, of course, is old Epic Games. What are they going to do with this? And right now, Epic Games, you can have, there's some open source launchers I've covered in the past, Legendary, and there's even like a graphic version of that. I can't even remember what the name of that open source project was, but I covered it on my channel. And
goes to show how out of touch with the community you are. It's called Heroic Launcher. Get your shit straight. It's a front-end GUI for Legendary.
That is where I'm just not sure what's going to happen with the integration, because I know Epic doesn't want to do anything to help Steam out. And it's going to take a mass adoption kind of event for Epic Games to work on Linux, because right now Linux has 1% to 2% market share. The CEO several years ago said, who cares about Linux?
And apparently you haven't done your market research lately. Even if you're going by net stats, Linux with Chrome, Linux is at 2.38%. And if you add Chrome OS worldwide, it's about 2.27%, if I remember correctly. This is the same stats that I threw back in Lunduke's face when he said, the end is nigh. Linux is sitting at about 5.5%, 6% roughly, if you're counting Chrome OS. Just saying.
And that's paraphrasing. He said something much worse, which I'll try to tag in here. Now, as far as Todd Sweeney goes, which is Epic Games, Tim Sweeney. I'm thinking of Todd Howard and Tim Sweeney. Well, that would be a weird baby. But anyways, he praises the Steam Deck as a great open platform. I'm curious to see what happens with this. Epic Games getting on board with the Steam Deck could make it in a lot of the Linux realm. And that's just where I'm at. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of great things happening. I love the fact that the CEO is actually speaking highly of Linux, because it was only like 2 years ago where he completely crapped all over Linux and basically called us second-class citizens, which isn't exactly great. What I think is going to happen is we're going to see moderate successful with the Steam Deck, but many gamers are going to get frustrated when they have multiple launchers, whether it's Uplay, whether it's some other launcher that's screwing things up, whether it could be Epic, Bethesda, EA, which hopefully all EA just...
So again, if we're talking EA, be it Origin, Uplay, those are tied directly to your Steam account. You'll have to have a correlation with those accounts you know, a Uplay account and a Steam account, you're never going to see a Uplay fucking launcher, basically, other than the Uplay Connect portion in Uplay when you launch from Steam. If legit, if you're going to talk about it, show it, because I can speak on this because I literally was just playing Splinter Cell Blacklist from my Chimera OS or Gamer OS machine that had to connect to Uplay via Steam. And you say, you get the Ubisoft Connect, and then it goes away and plays. That's it. There is no launcher.
Integrates with Steam, and we don't have to worry about ever launching Origin. It's been a while since I've even bothered with the EA game, so you tell me if it's still a problem. But I'm worried about this because I know what it's like to game on Linux. I know there's still some things you got to do with certain ones, and lately, this past 6 months, I just didn't even want to mess with it. I was just like, screw it. I'm just going to launch my Windows dual boot back in there and launch my games. And if I'm doing that, what do you think a hardcore Windows user is going to do? Do you think he's going to just be like, oh, it's a little bit faster, I get more performance and control in Linux? No. He's going to go, oh, crap, there's games bugging out. What's going on? Oh, it's this crappy Linux.
Because you stupid choding tool, this is not meant for hardcore gamers. This is meant to get people into gaming. Check the audience and check your knowledge at the door. The reason you went back and running back to Windows, and because Linux is the end of the world. Hey, if Windows works better for you and that's where you want to play your games, by all means. And yeah, Linux has its problems. Let's not say that Windows doesn't either. What I get tired of from smarmy jackass motherfuckers like this is that I'm right. My experience is right. No. Your experience is your experience, and that's totally fine. Please do share. But what I'm going to say is, if you give that experience as nothing but factual, you're a fucking moron who should not be listened to.
Next thing, I'm just going to install Windows. I know it'll work on there. And that's what's going to happen to a lot of users. I really hope I'm wrong here. But I really think that's what's going to happen when this thing launches at the end of the year. And if Steam could prove me wrong, I would love to eat my words. I would love to.
No, you don't. You're a smarmy douche. You're like one dude. You run and hide anytime anybody gives you any confrontation.
To see Linux gaming finally become a thing. Because right now, most people, they just use, whether it's VFIO pass-through or they just dual boot into Windows, but Windows is usually involved.
Or if you take the different mindset and view the goddamn thing like it's supposed to be as a console, cool. Because then that eliminates the, well, I can't play X mentality. People go onto PS4, PS5, and they expect those games. They don't expect them, especially if they're exclusive, to be on the other console. And vice versa. I don't expect Nintendo things to be on Xbox or PlayStation. The expectation. This boils down to marketing. And people like you and others who are viewing this through the PC lens are fucking the marketing up. It's a console. Get over it.
For any kind of gamer. And the Steam Deck is specifically made for gamers. Not Linux nerds, but gamers. I'm still getting one because I just want the hardware. I don't know what I'll end up with, though. Will it end up on Windows? Will it stay on Linux? I mean, it'll stay on Linux regardless, but I'm just saying most people probably won't choose that option. But with that said, leave me a dislike because you hated this and you hated me telling you how it's going to be.
I don't care if you're saying, you know, your perspective and your opinion. You're stating your opinion as fact. Because I was right this one time. Dog, we've all been right this one time. You want to, I was right when Google bought the company that was making VP8 and VP9 so we could have, WebM. Cool. I predicted it 2 years before it happened. Cool on you. I don't go around bragging about it. End of the day, success or failure depends on the marketing and people understanding it's a goddamn console.